Okay, YouTuber, so today I come with the next interesting video. We'll be changing an alternator on a 2004 Grand Caravan 3.3 engine. Okay, so the first step that we want to do is to disconnect our battery cable, the negative battery cable. Very important because you don't want any short on the new alternator because it could end up burning the regulator. Okay, so that's our first step you should do, disconnect your battery. So we can play around with the power there so it would never spark because the engine itself is negative. Any part on the engine is negative. So when you disconnect the negative, then you have the positive from your cable cannot touch on the negative and you make a short, okay? But it's been protected by a plastic that goes around it to protect that wire from touching anywhere, okay? But we take an extra precaution, disconnect the battery. Okay, so this is the new alternator here. So the alternator you have 3 bolts to disconnect this alternator. You have 2 bolts that's bolting on the engine in this direction, and you have the bolt that bolted in this direction, okay? So this is the one that goes in that direction. This bolt is a little bit difficult to get it because what happened, you have the AC line that is about 2 inches away or less, maybe 1 inch away from the bolt. So the easiest way you do that, you need a ratchet key, which you can go into small places to help you to get that bolt out, okay? So the first thing before I get to this bolt, what I do, I disconnect the positive. This one comes direct from the battery. This is the positive for the alternator, okay? And then you have your wire that goes to the computer and goes to the light in the dash to tell you that your alternator is not charging. It gives you a warning light there, okay? So when you get that first, the second thing when you disconnect your cable, the second thing that you're going to be doing on this model, what I did, I disconnect my throttle wire, okay? One is for the pedal and one is for your cruise control. I disconnect those 2 wires. When you disconnect that wire, then you're going to disconnect your EGR valve, the EGR valve which blocks the alternator to come out, okay? So you have to remove that EGR valve, okay? So I'm going to put on the alternator here. You don't want to put on the battery so it's like a short on it. So I'm going to be showing you okay, so now we disconnect these 2 cables. You can lose out the 2 screws, whichever one you prefer, but you still can pass it if you don't want to disconnect it from there or it doesn't understand how to get it. You just have to push it up and then you pass this wire through the slot, okay? And you got to put it back as in reverse. And what you're going to be doing is 2 number 8 screws here. Going to remove this 2 number 8 and there is 2 number 10 screw on the bottom of the EGR valve, okay, which is at the bottom here. And then you remove the EGR valve. Because you see when the EGR valve is there, look at the alternator, because you don't have any space to bring it up. And you don't want to take out the AC compressor. You don't want to go all the way there. Okay, like there's more work. You want to do less work, okay? So I already disconnect the EGR valve. I bring it up. Have a connection, disconnect the connector. Alright, so now what you see the alternator in full view. Alright, now you see the alternator in full view. I already disconnect the alternator. Okay, so when you disconnect the EGR valve, the next thing that you're going to need to do is to jack up the cargo underneath and disconnect your belt. Okay, so that's the second thing. Then you come up back, remove your 2 bolts from the top, and then the bolt, the third bolt, you can do it on the top, but if you want, you have easy access underneath. So you can take that bolt from underneath, okay? So when you get those 3 bolts out, take off your belt, then you have the alternator come up easy, okay? And you don't need to take the belt completely off of all the pulley. You just take the belt from the alternator pulley, the crank pulley, and the AC compressor. So those are the 3 pulley you need to take the belt off. Alright? Just in case you mix it up and you don't know which go where, there's a diagram right in front of the engine here. Alright, which is the rod support right in front there. Okay, you have two engine they put here for the diagram because you have 2 model of engine that fits in this van. You have a 2.4 and you have a 3 liter. So you're working with a 3.3, sorry, a 3.3 engine. Okay, so this is the belt routing for the 3.3 engine, and you just follow the diagram which go where. Okay, so in this diagram here, what we disconnect, you have your tensioner here. I'm going to show you the easiest way to disconnect your tensioner, to release the tension on the belt and slip the belt out. Okay, so you disconnect your alternator, which is the top one. ALT, it means alternator. AC, it means the AC compressor. Alright, and this is the damper. We call it a damper pulley. This is the crank pulley, has some different terms. So these are the 3 that you're going to take the belt off. Alright, and so in putting back the belt, you're going to start putting from your alternator. Right, because now you're going to be going underneath the car, so the alternator is on the top. You're going to try to install the belt on the alternator, and then you're going to try to do whichever one is easy for you, the AC or the damper pulley or the crank pulley, which one is easy for you. Alright, the tensioner is have a slot for a 1/2 inch, but it's so close to the frame, you mightn't get a 1/2 inch ratchet in there or a 1/2 inch tool in there to release the tensioner. So what I do, so I'm gonna go underneath and I'm gonna show you what I did for that situation. Okay. So I'm just gonna go over the tool that you need for a job like this. So the tool you need is a 15 ratchet key or a 15 ratchet key. Alright. Or you need a 15 key. It's gonna take you more time. Alright. You need a flat screwdriver, which is gonna help you to disconnect the connector. I need a ratchet. Number 10 socket with a ratchet. Okay? And you need a number 8. So that's all the tool that you need for this job, and with a vice grip. So you don't need much tool to do this job. So I'm gonna go underneath to show you. Okay, we are underneath the car now. So this is a crank, like I explained to you on before, and this is your AC compressor. And this is the underneath here, the bolt for your alternator. The last bolt you want to take out is right there. Okay, so this is your tensioner here. Okay, that's your tensioner. And the tool I use a vice grip, and the end of the tensioner, I connect my vice grip to the end of the tensioner. It's have a lip. See there? I connect my vice grip to the end of the tensioner. So I'm going to use the vice grip to put pressure to release the belt. Because the tensioner itself has somewhere to put a tool in it, but a 1/2 inch ratchet is not going to fit in there. Okay? So, and then you have your belt. To keep your belt back on the pulley, you don't want the belt to come off, so it's easy for you to connect back the belt. Okay, so that is the trick and the easiest way to install the belt back on the alternator. Okay. So you see, that's the easiest way to do a job like this, and everything is reverse of what you do, you know. So, but in reversing, when you put in back the alternator, Because remember before, the first bolt I explained to take out is the bolt that is the hardest bolt. Why are you going to take that bolt out? Because let's say if you take these two bolts out, the easy access bolt, then the hard bolt, the alternator going to be putting pressure on the bolt. Because sometimes the bolt does need to make two turn on it, and then after the bolt come out easy. But when you disconnect this two outer bolt, the easy bolt, then the hard bolt will have to work harder to get it out because the alternator putting pressure in it. So you take this one first, and then you do the reverse, you put it back last. Why? Because when you put in these two bolts, it's going to help you to stabilize the alternator. And then this bolt, you don't have to like balance the alternator, or the alternator is going to put pressure from the bolt. You don't need any pressure on this bolt. You need this bolt to go in free and to come out free. Okay, so that's the trick of changing an alternator in a 2004 Grand Caravan 3.3 engine. And in removing this, the EGR valve, okay, there's a gasket. Okay, I put it somewhere. There's a gasket you have to be careful with that you don't drop it. Okay, and you have to put back that gasket, or else you're gonna be having a leak, some kind of vacuum leak, because this needs to be sealed there. So you don't want to lose that gasket. And make sure your gasket on the intake here is there, because when you tighten these two bolts, you don't want nothing to leak there, or else the car is gonna run, it's gonna idle rough, and you can hear sometimes it's sucking air. Then you go back, do everything. You put back your positive to your alternator, connect your plug, put back your belt, and then you connect your battery. You start the car, and you test your charging system. If it's charging, it's supposed to charge at 14, like a good alternator will charge at 14 or 13.5, 13.9, so forth. Depends on your battery and depends on the state of your battery, because remember your battery is not fully charged because your alternator wasn't charging good in the first place. That's why you replace it, and you have to try it with a load on it to make sure that it's stable. It's gonna drop, but then it's supposed to pushing out more charge to keep up with the demand, Alright, so that is the trick of changing an alternator. Okay, every car is different, but like this alternator, it's very simple. Okay, and you don't need much thing to do to change it. So I hope that this video helped you, and subscribe to my channel, and there are a lot more interesting videos to come. So have a nice day, and see you in the future. Okay, bye.